Hey there, team from Herman HVAC. I just wanted to put this little video together kind of as a follow-up to our accounting demonstration that occurred on Friday. One of the questions that was posed was they want to see the process from a quote to the job, entering a payable, and invoicing the customer. This is a lot of different hats for a lot of different users within the system. So we're going to go ahead and walk through these things together. And I am going to try to let you know when I'm changing hats for the people that are going to be specifically doing these jobs within Acumatica. So the first thing we want to kind of get cleared up here with Acumatica is that, we are a true ERP solution. And so some of the terminology is going to be different from what you might be used to with your current system today. First off is we won't be utilizing the term project the way that your system currently does. That equivalent for us is what we call a sales opportunity. From within that sales opportunity, what we're going to do is generate a quote of the product that is necessary for your particular prospect. And then what we're going to go ahead and do is take that sales quote and opportunity once it has been won, once your sales team has won that particular opportunity, we are going to then convert it into a project. And when we convert it into a project, we are going to have that repository that we talked about on Friday that gives us real-time project or job costing. We can post expenses to it through AP. We can do subcontract bills against that to track expenses. We can track labor, research and development time, engineering time. All of those things can go in to that particular project as an expense, as well as being able to bill directly to that job so that we could track the revenue and get a profit and loss statement for that particular project. So we're going to jump through in this particular video and we will go through these different phases and different steps. And after watching this video, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Frank or myself so we can clear anything up that you might have. Thank you. All right, let's jump right in and let's take a look at a sales opportunity. When your team has the opportunity to help a contractor bid for a particular job, we want to create that opportunity within Acumatica to track your sales process. So we do that directly here through the opportunities workspace. And we have a lot of dashboards, like I mentioned, on different demos that can help manage all of these things. But typically what we'll do is we will create a new opportunity for a sales or a job project. When we have this opportunity, we want to fill out any pertinent information regarding this particular opportunity. What the job is for, who is the contractor that we're working with. We may be working with multiple contractors and so forth. So we have different ways to be able to handle that within the opportunity screen. We can determine what kind of class. These are all user definable. We can determine the stages. These are all user definable as well. And we're going to say today's bid is, we'll say the bid date that we need to submit this is on the 2nd of June. And we're just going to go ahead and call this Herman HVAC video demo. And then the business account, we'll go ahead and use our Alta Ace business account. Again, you can leave this blank if you are going to be working with multiple contractors. We can set the job captain. In this case here, I'm going to use myself. My alter ego is Maxwell Baker. We could set an engineering company, an engineering salesperson, an estimator when we are starting to build this plan, and we can even define market segments and so forth. Once we have this saved, we now have a sales opportunity where we can track things like activities, create tasks, create notes. I can create a note here. And again, this is just all correspondence that I'm working with this particular prospect or existing contractor. And we'll just say test note, and we can fill in. So once we create notes, those things become activities within the system here. Other things that are activities, emails, when we email the sales quote from this opportunity, those kind of things. Now, to generate a quote, sometimes what we need to do is get the items that we plan to quote for this particular prospect. We're going to go into our details tab here, and we're going to just start adding items in this. Now, in my case here, what we're going to go ahead and do is we're just going to use the green HVAC items. And in this case here, we're just going to utilize some dampers. And in this case here, we have a checkbox for basis of design. If we need to put that onto the sales quote, then we can also put in the vendor that we need to utilize. And I'm just going to go choose green HVAC fan. And then when it comes to this is very similar to some of those price worksheets that you might be getting from GreenHack. And I might want to just put a quantity of one. Maybe the list price is $4,500. Maybe we know our multiplier is 56%, giving us a net cost of $25.20. And saying in this case here, we want an 80% margin. We can, actually, we want an 80% margin here. That could bring us up into this particular case. So let's go ahead and do it like this here. And we could set those prices out the way that we want. Let's go ahead and set this up. And we're going to go ahead and save that. Now, if we want to add additional items from different vendors, we have that capability here as well. There's no limit to the number of items that you can add to a particular detail of the opportunity. Now, when we want to create that quote, we just go ahead and come up here and say create quote. We'll just go ahead and create and review. This will take all of the details that are on this sales opportunity and convert it here into a sales quote. You can see all of that information fills in. We can go ahead and save this. We can set an expiration date. We can say that this expires on the 6th of June. Let's say our bid date here, maybe we're trying to get this out here by the 26th. And essentially what we're able to do here is when we, dependent on the information that you want to print, first off, we can send this through an approval process. I can request an approval. We can then set up on the approvals workflow who is associated to approve this particular workflow. I don't have a approval workflow set up for quotes right now, but we could set up a multi-layer quote approval if we needed to. I'm going to go ahead and print out the quote. And like I mentioned on Friday, we do have a report designer that comes with Acumatica. This will allow you to modify the look and feel of any of your printed documents, whether it's forms or reports. You can include things like terms and conditions here because this item was a basis of design, where you can see that we're including that item, and I do have some terms and conditions here that I've included into this particular document. Hit the back button, take me back to the quote. I can opt to send it. When I hit send, this will email it directly from Acumatica. It will convert it into a PDF. Once it's converted into a PDF, it'll also use a system generated email. You'll be able to see that on the activities tab. Here you'll see these Herman HVAC sales quote 37 is available for viewing. Here is the default email that was generated. If you want to open this email up, you can actually see the email and who it was sent to. And on the files, this is the converted document into a PDF. At this point, we can work through the process. I can go back to my opportunity. You'll see here's that activity for that email. You can continue to follow up with the client and find out, where we're going with this particular quote, and work that all the way through until this is actually closed. Now, what we want to do is we want to be able to change our line statuses. So we have some workflow that we can use to lock some of these fields up so no one just accidentally changes that. So if I wanted to, I can go into my sales quote, hit the edit button. And if I actually win this particular opportunity, I can go to the details, choose the lines that actually won. And if I want to close this opportunity as one, I can give it a reason. Again, this is user definable. We can change the stage, say okay, and then now this will put this opportunity into a one status, and it will activate our create project action to allow us to create a project that we can track revenue and expenses against. Okay, now that I've won this opportunity, I'm going to go ahead and create my project. So I'm going to use my action here to create a project. This will take all the pertinent information, customer, one details, things like that. And what this will do is it will convert it into a project that I can utilize. And it's telling me here I've got an error that the engineering company can't be empty. These are things that we can make as required or optional depending on your workflow. Let me go ahead and open this up real quick. We'll put this back into a different stage. Okay. And then let me go ahead and put in my ABC Studios as my engineering company. Let's go ahead and close this back as one. All right, and then let's go ahead and create that project. Now, dependent on your system, I'm running this locally here on my own server, but Acumatica will host your product for you. And based on the consumption level that you are at, that will create, that will speed up things. Actually, I had a little pop up here. Just going to say, okay, done. Now, once this project has been created, we can access that through our construction workspace. I'm going to go into my construction workspace and I'm going to right click and open the projects in a new tab. And I should have a new project that was generated for that Herman HVAC video demo. If I open this up, this is now a new open job or project that we have established in Acumatica that will track our budgeted income against our budgeted expenses, and we will be able to apply bill revenue here. We'll be able to apply expenses here, and you can see here under our revenue budget, you'll see here that we have those dampers and what we associate, what we plan to sell them for. The cost budget, what we plan to buy them for, and these are all tied to a specific project task. So now what we need to do here is if we want to create a sales order so that we can bill the customer for this, we have the capability here to just check the box to say create sales order. I'm going to go ahead and save this. And then now I have this action up here to create a sales order. If I create that sales order here, that will create I can choose what kind of type of order. We can always get into those details at a later date, but I'm just going to go ahead and say okay here to generate a new sales order. Now, since you drop ship most of these items, we'll use the sales order to drive the PO, right? I'm just gonna say okay here. This is gonna generate my sales order number 249. This can be seen here under the sales orders workspace. And if I open this in a new tab, there's that new sales order for $5,040. Now, if I want to generate a PO from this, we're going to go into this sales order. If this item is marked for PO, I can just mark this for PO. I can opt to drop ship this to my customer. I'm going to go ahead and hit save. Let me turn off taxes. Sorry about that. Not sure why I keep leaving that on. We're just going to say okay. Okay. Now, when I'm ready to create a PO, I can use my action menu and I can create a purchase order. What this will do is it will bring me to my create purchase order screen. It will bring up the line items that need to be purchased. The items will typically have a default vendor associated to them, and I can specify when I hit the process all. I can update the pricing if I choose, if I know what the price is specifically. So once I've gone ahead and went to the vendor portal to place my order, I'm going to go ahead and get the total price of these dampers that I'm ordering, and I'm going to apply that on my purchase order. So over here, I'm just going to go ahead and update my unit cost. Let's say that's going to cost us $25.20. Hit save, take it off of hold, and then if I need to, I can email the PO directly from here. I can apply an approval workflow if I need to get approvals before I send this out. But now that I have both the sales order and the purchase order generated, if I go back into my project and refresh my project screen, there's a couple of things I want to point out. On the sales orders tab, all of the sales orders that are associated to this job will appear here, and we can see their status and what's been unshipped and what's been unbilled. On the cost budget tab, the line for the item, you can actually see now that I have a committed open amount for $25.20. And if I go to the commitments tab, I'm going to see all of my purchase orders. And you can see the drop ship and the status and what the order total is. All of that information, we use this project screen as our hub, because I could go to the revenue budget tab. For that same line, I could see the PO number, the vendor. I could see the sales order number. The slash and the 1 is the line number on that particular. So if you have multiple lines, you'll see that there. And then same thing on the cost budget side. I could see those same pieces of information. So this truly becomes your project hub. Now, when I'm ready to, when my vendor has said, hey, we've shipped out this product, here's the bill for this particular PO, all we need to do is go back to the purchase order and enter a receipt for that. When they signify, hey, we actually shipped out half of these dampers. So now what I'm going to go ahead and do is enter a PO receipt for half. And they're going to tell us, okay, we're going to get the bill number. So we'll just call this 519 GRE01. And in this case here, we're going to just say, hey, we're only receiving half. So we're going to only get billed for half. And I'm going to go ahead and release that. The releasing of the purchase receipt is what's going through and doing all of the journal entries for me. So now when I want to kind of see what has been billed, I can now go to accounts payable and actually see that AP bill. Now we'll let this go through here. And then once that operation is completed, I can go into this purchase receipt look at the billing and see the actual accounts payable bill for $1,260. I'm going to go ahead and click that reference ID, and it's going to pull up that AP bill. So very simple for us to bill against purchase orders within Acumatica, and you can see how easy it was for us to generate that PO from the actual sales order. Okay, now that we have that, we are able to now bill the customer for half of that order because we've been signaled that we actually shipped, the vendor shipped half of the order to the customer. So now I'm going to go into my sales order, right click, open that in a new tab here. And we're going to pull up that sales order number. And in this case here, because we did it as a drop ship, some of the things that you're going to be able to see is if we go to the shipments tab, you'll see that reference to that drop ship and the quantity that was shipped on that particular PO. If I go to my details, I do have a column that I could add to this that would tell me how much is my open quantity and what my shipped quantity was. So now when I want to actually bill this, I can use my actions menu and I can prepare an invoice. I can also favorite this so that it just becomes up here so it is available right away, so I don't have to actually go to the actions menu. But if I hit prepare invoice here, this will generate an invoice for the exact amount that the dropship PO was done for, so that we do not overbill the customer for only the partial that was actually shipped out. So we have good controls in place here with Acumatica. If we only received half, or we've only been acknowledged for half being shipped to our customer, we're only going to go ahead and bill out for that half here. And then it's going to be tied to that project within Acumatica's project or construction workspace. Now I can email the invoice directly to the customer from here. When I email an invoice directly from the customer, that will create an activity so that I will always know when I email this invoice to the customer. So I can click on that activity here and I will see that email. We also add that to the customer screen. So if I click this pencil and bring up the customer screen, on the customer's screen, there is an activities tab here as well. And you'll see that invoice that we generated as well as that quote that we sent out earlier. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of here. I'm going to release this. This will commit that invoice into Acumatica. And one of the things that's going to happen is now I have an open invoice. And if I go back into my project and refresh the screen, now I'm going to actually have actual income, actual expense, and running total of margin. So this is now real-time job costing within Acumatica. I can go to my revenue budget. I can see how much of this is completed. I can So we've seen how the sales order and the billing to the customer affects the project. The PO and the AP bill from that PO affects the project. But now I can also go into payables. If there is some miscellaneous expense that needs to get posted to the job, I can create a new bill. I'm going to right click and open this in a brand new tab. Maybe there are things that I didn't budget for. So maybe I have some sort of service. Let's just go into AA services here and we'll say that this is a bill. And on this side here, I can add some type of maybe miscellaneous travel or something like that. So I could create business travel inventory ID. These will tie to specific GL accounts. I can say that, hey, maybe there was a $500 travel expense and I want to tie that to my project. So in here, I can go into my projects and we can find the project that this needs to go to. I can specify the task that I need it to go to. So maybe there's just some miscellaneous, or maybe we might have some, I don't know if we have a travel task here. Don't, but let's just put it to GRE. And let's say to those dampers task, maybe we have some cost codes that we don't apply. But in this case here, when I go ahead and save this particular bill, take it off of hold and release it, this AP bill will now post to that project. So if I go back to my project, originally we had $1,260 worth of expenses. If I refresh, I now have $1,760. And if I go to my cost budget, you can see that I now have travel expenses that I didn't originally budget for. So now my budgeted profit margin was 50%, but now we're down to 30.16% because we're applying some additional expenses that we did not expect. Maybe we have some labor that needs to go into this. So here we have a time and expenses workspace, and I can put in time activities. So if I want to open this up in a new tab and I want to apply some time activities, maybe some labor that I did. And so now I can come in here today, maybe for project 32, and also against that same task, GRE dampers, and we'll just use a default cost code. And what I might want to do here is say, hey, you know what? I put in about 4 hours of R&D time. It took me some time, and I want to know how this impacts the profitability of my job. So I can take this off of hold, save it. I can send it through a approval workflow if I need to have times activities approved. But literally, we can just release this time activity, find that time that was entered, and we can process that as well. And when we process this time activity, we will continue to add more expense to this project. So when this is processed, I can go back